Hello, everybody. I hope you are all doing very well. Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And today is actually a special day because it's Global Humanitarian Day. And my guest today is also, a global goodwill ambassador and is an humanitarian. So we're going to talk a lot about, humanity today and philanthropy today and I hope that you're gonna be able to participate as well, ask question or give us your insight on the subject that we're going to focus on today. Today the focus is going to be on women empowerment, but more on humanitarian focus, and also on a project as well, supporting people in very difficult areas. And my guest today is she is based in the US, but she does a lot of work all over the world. And her name is Manna. Manna, I hope I'm not gonna hurt her name, but I'm just gonna stick to the first name. She'll have the opportunity to uh, let us know, her last name later on. But I think I'm just gonna call her Mana during the show. And she is amazing. She's done, so much work. She's a diplomat. She's a commissioner. She's also, like I said, a global goodwill ambassador in the US and a human right and no-profit leader. And also she speaks as well. She's a speaker. So she's been, in the leadership in the profit and non-profit sector for more than a decade now, and she's very passionate about public service, and she's done a lot around the world as far as humanitarian aid, foreign aid, and sustainability is concerned. And she is the founder and one of the founder of a company called Gift, and it's an humanitarian organization advocating for and empowering most all the vulnerable people around the world, and in some of the very difficult and poorest areas. So lots of work, lots of good things that she's doing. And as part of her organization, as part of this organization, she's been able to empower 10,000 children every year. So really, 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 something to really cheer her on and help her, because she's doing the work on the ground, and she's not waiting for to react. She's really taking the initiative and trying to go to the root cause of any challenge or poverty in this case that some of the community are going through. So I'm not going to stay long. I'll bring Mana to actually, tell us about all the work that she's doing, focusing particularly today on women empowerment, the women empowerment workshop that she does all over the world, and also a project, Sport for Solar, to bring light to the very remote areas around the world. So don't go anywhere. We're gonna start, and make sure you have your pen, you have your notebook, and you are ready to ask your question or participate, because we need you to participate. There's gonna be, it's gonna be a very important conversation for all of us, with poverty happening now all over the world, and especially with the pandemic. It's getting worse. So don't stay silent, participate, and help us in this conversation.
feels right on memories. But as I got older, I started to be more aware of some of the abusive sides of
So, good morning, Manna. Good morning, and welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. It's such a pleasure to, to host you today and get to talk about, a very important subject, on a very special day, because today is Global Humanitarian Day as well, which is, focusing on the work that you and a lot of, people, very courageous people, are doing on the ground to help over all the vulnerable human being around the world. So let's start, and the first thing I want, is really know who you are, and what you're doing, and how you came to do what you do now, because it's such an important work.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And my last name is Dabholkar.
Okay, okay. So I'm
um,
happy I didn't try, because I would have just
well,
not
I
been
don't try.
able to.
No, I like to go with my first name. So, but thank you. I think it was. I was just looking at your the the preview and introduction of the show. It's really well done. So, congratulations for that.
Thank
Um,
you.
So when people, often ask me how I started doing what I'm doing, and it's been about 15 years. So I was always very curious about when people donate to organizations, what happens to that money?
Mm-hmm.
Because mostly we are humans and in general are reactive. So when something happens, you see someone in pain, you donate, you want to reach out, you want to help them. We forget to ask questions. We
Mm-hmm.
forget. So if I'm giving you $1, what are you doing with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was helping an organization many years ago, just volunteering for them, raising money. And the organization was in the field, going out and rescuing children who were trapped
Mm-hmm.
in human trafficking. But I wanted to see how they're doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
one day I found myself on a police raid that was going in to bust a trafficking
Mm-hmm.
location and rescuing kids. So this is many years ago. It was my first time. I had no idea what I was going to see.
Mm-hmm.
When we stepped into this little stingy room, I thought that we'll probably encounter women,
Mm-hmm.
16, 17-year-old young women trapped into trafficking. So we went into this room, and I was so surprised to see 4 and 5-year-old kids.
Wow.
And I had no idea. I was so naive about trafficking. It
Mm-hmm.
was also many years ago. Now people seem to be more aware of
Mm-hmm.
trafficking than they were before. So that kind of changed a lot of things that night for me. I started questioning the way we do humanitarian work.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that we are always reacting to things. We are
Mm-hmm.
never prepared. We never invest in prevention. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put all my time, all my resources into either a project or an initiative that would
Mm-hmm.
prevent kids from falling victims to
Mm-hmm.
trafficking. I question why kids have to go through trauma to get the help that they need.
Mm-hmm.
So we started working on preventive programs, and that's how GIFT came about, GIFT Global Initiative. Everything that we do at GIFT is it, it's focused on preventing exploitation of children.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that starts with the family, right? So you have to look into the causes, and the top causes, the main causes of exploitation that leads to exploitation of children is poverty and hunger, and the family feeling vulnerable, not being able to provide safety and security for their kids. So everything, all the programs that we design, execute, run, everything's focused on kids and keeping them safe and making sure that the family can provide for their kids. I don't want the families to rely on outside organizations or entities to be able to provide safety and security for their own kids, which is why we focus on single moms. And that brings me to the women empowerment piece that you mentioned. The mothers in many countries, because so I was reading an article the other day, which it was very interesting. It spoke about the immigration between United States and Latin America, and they were saying a lot of men are moving to America, and they leave their family behind in wherever their original country is, to come to America to find better opportunity. And in many cases, they are unable to bring their family on. And the back home, the mother becomes the single breadwinner for the family, for the kids. So how do we make sure that the mom doesn't feel vulnerable where it leads to the exploit of her own exploitation and exploitation of the children? Yeah. So we have a footprint in about every other country. So we are in Africa, Asia, Latin America, United States, and the Middle East at this point. And we run school sponsorships. So everything that we do is really into, I would say, 4 or 5 buckets. Education for the mom, education for the children. We do health, so medical. We have a medical fund, which will pay for medical expenses of these kids. We have a solar initiative, which brings solar lights to areas where there's no electricity. That allows the families to stay safe. The children can commute back and forth safely because these are portable solar lights, so they can carry them to school and back. Small businesses can stay open longer because they have light. We have, under the solar initiative, we also do clean water, clean drinking water. And then we have, as you mentioned, we have the sports initiative, which is really a fun twist on how we give the solar lights to these communities. I don't believe in giving free donations away because you're not addressing the problem. You want the kids to earn it in a way. So we organize these sporting events twice a year in these small communities. The kids they participate in either soccer or tennis, and they win the solar lights. So they all go home with solar lights.
So a lot of
That's
good.
a capsule.
That's in a nutshell, I think, because you do so much. It's just so difficult to summarize it. But I think, you painted, the picture, and then let us know exactly what you're doing. So we have Roslyn. Roslyn, hey, Coach Rose, she's here. She's already, oh my goodness. I mean, when you were talking about the kids, 4 or 5 years old, and also, she's really acknowledging what you're doing. So what we're gonna do is just have, a video about your organization, and really, have it to see, what you've been doing so far on the ground, and to complement what
Thank
you've
you.
just described us right now.
There are far too many places in this world where families are living without the basic necessities to survive. Clean water, food, medicine, and shelter are scarce. The children suffer the most. Help must come from those of us who can. We are Gift Global Initiative, a nonprofit organization focused on helping families and especially the children in some of the world's poorest areas. We believe the best way to help is to offer a hand up and not a hand out through education and outreach.
We are in Mexico today at a gift pop-up school. We have a doctor from Children's Hospital of Mexico. She's speaking with the young women and the moms about birth control and protection, diseases, and how to take care of their newborn babies. Most moms who live here, they're 16, 17, and they have multiple kids, whether it's water, sanitation, solar, power, school sponsorships. We try to create a comprehensive package for the families that we work with. The way to do it is to educate them, to make sure that these families can actually provide for the kids that they have.
We are an award-winning 21st century charity and content organization using social media to spread our message, track our funding, and solicit donations in real time and with real results.
Dabholkar is an American company, and they are based in California, and they donated a ton of these pillows.
We are educating corporations, individuals about how they can keep giving back in a more sustainable way.
We are different from other charities. We're smaller and more focused, which means our donations go further, faster, and with more impact. We help our corporate partners achieve their charitable goals by producing high-quality content that they can use to highlight their involvement in our social causes.
You don't want to create a generation that grows up thinking that they are entitled to free stuff. We want to make sure that we don't see these people here in 10 years. I want them to move out, have a better life. So that's the goal of GIFT, is to uplift people and educate donors to give in a mindful, sustainable way.
We are Gift. Follow us, support us, and help make a difference today.
So we are back. We are back with Manna, and today we're focusing on, the humanitarian work that she's doing, on the ground, especially with women and children. And we're gonna talk about a project, a solo project, which is associated with sport, to help, those remote community without any, light to get the light from using solar. So, Mana, I mean, when we look at the video, it looks okay. It looks like things are going smoothly. But what are the key challenges? Because, I can understand, and I've been in some, very difficult area where when people are really, miss everything, like you said in the video, they want things for free. And they just feel so desperate that they don't want to make any effort. They really want people to give them things for free. So what are the key challenges? And then you have also the politics around, and some area are not safe. So what are the key challenges that you have to, overcome to be able to make the impact that you want to make?
So let me give you an example of Mexico. It's in the video you saw Tijuana, Mexico, which is about, that community has 1,000 families, and it's 10 minutes from the U.S.-Mexico border. So once you cross the border into Mexico, this community is literally 10 minutes from the border. But they live under complete control of the cartels, the Mexican cartels. So it's a breeding ground, it's a recruiting ground for the cartels. They pick kids from that community for the cartel. So obviously, it comes with its own dangers of, bringing our volunteers and staff into an area that's completely under the control of the cartels. But thankfully, we haven't had any situation. We've been working there for many years, about 4 years, 4 or 5 years. And we work with multiple families, and they leave us to do our work, which is quite interesting. And we always have the presence. So when we do these pop-up schools that you saw in the video, the cartel's always there. There'll be some people keeping an eye on what's going on. But thankfully, we have not had any situation, like I said, but there's always a risk. There's always a risk. As you said, there's corruption, there's politics. And when we first started working in Mexico, one of the biggest challenges we faced was that all these groups, church groups and other nonprofit groups, would come into the slums. They would once a year or twice a year, they would bring these trucks of free donation, clothes and shoes and all kinds of things, and they dump it in the slum and they leave. So there is no connection between the kids and these people who are coming in. It's like Christmas. It lasts a day. They'll dump the stuff and go. And it was very difficult initially because the families would expect that out of us. But eventually they understand now. And you have to pick and choose. You can't work with all 1,000 families because not everyone is in a place to receive the help that you want to give them. Some people prefer to be there. They prefer to live in that community forever, and that's their choice. But there are many families who want to move out. So it's really spending time in these communities, which is why I love what we do. We never write checks to anyone. We never give cash to anyone. The money goes, if it's a school sponsorship, the money is paid directly to the school. We keep in touch with the school to make sure that the child is studying. So it's really creating the bond between yourself, your volunteers, and the families, where they begin to trust the process. They trust you. Let me tell you this. This is very recent. We just had a situation 2 days ago where there's this nonprofit working in the same area, but I think they do a lot of work with the animals in the community. And for some reason, they were sponsoring some kids to school. And last minute, a week before the school starts, they decided to drop all the kids because they couldn't find sponsors, because that's not what they do. Their expertise is animals.
Yeah.
So 1 week before the school starts, they dropped all the kids and they couldn't find them sponsors. So we started getting frantic phone calls from all the mothers saying, can you help? Can you help? And I'm like, well, it takes time to find sponsors. We started doing that 6 months before time. But thankfully, we were able to find about 7 sponsors within 24 hours so that the kids don't have to drop out of school. But that's the trust, that's the bond that we have created, where the families know they can reach out to me anytime for help. So one of the biggest challenges was creating the trust, and it takes time. You have to be in the trenches. You have to be out there spending time, speaking with the families, listening to their needs, because every community has different needs. The families in Mexico, they have light, they have electricity, but then the families that we work with in South Africa have none. So it's really listening to what they need and designing your initiatives based on their needs, on what you want to do.
Wow, that's good. So you might actually have somebody joining you. Coach Rose is like, how do we volunteer? Because she's really, she's really appreciative of, all the work that you just described. So you might want to connect with her after the show, I think, Coach Rose, and reach out to Manna directly.
Yeah, so let me add to that. If you go on the website, which is GGI, Gift Global
Mm-hmm.
Initiative, so ggiusa.org.
Mm-hmm.
There's a tab on the right corner of the screen that will say volunteer. Click on that
Mm-hmm.
and submit a volunteer application.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
that's how you can volunteer for gift.
Okay, all right. I hope you got it, Coach Rose. Just go on our website and really look at the area where you can volunteer and make an application. And I think she's gonna be so happy to have you because this work is so important. It's very important. It's important that we start looking at humanity more than all the material things around, because we need to be able to help humanity and be okay with what we have before all the material thing, and not the other way around. And that's the key challenge. So I mean, you said that you're working with women as well. I mean, the empowerment work that you're doing. So what type of work, can you give it a little bit more detail, what type of work that you're doing
Yeah,
and how successful you are? Because sometimes, especially in those very difficult area, the cultural background of the communities can be also a big obstacles. I
yeah,
mean, as far as
yeah.
I'm concerned. Yeah.
It takes a lot of patience, I can tell you
Mm-hmm,
that. We had great success in South Africa
mm-hmm,
with the women empowerment workshops. It really took off very fast. And I think it may have to do something with COVID and the fact that people were out of jobs and
mm-hmm,
were really looking for something to do with their time and provide for their families.
mm-hmm,
So these workshops are based on, you know, just the philosophy that you don't want to give them free
mm-hmm,
donations. Yeah, and I don't want to undermine the importance of transitional aid. It's very important to provide them with things that, which is more current needs like food and water and clothes. I get that. But that should never be the long term goal. Yeah, it should be that they are able to provide for themselves. So the women empowerment workshops, and I keep calling it women empowerment, but men are welcome too. Um,
mm-hmm,
but the unemployment rate of women is much higher. We
mm-hmm,
have a lot of women who are unemployed and not in the workforce, but they want to provide for their families, or they are responsible to provide for their families. So these workshops teach women a skill set. So, for example, in South Africa, we do it every Wednesday.
mm-hmm,
Initially, we had 5. Now we have about 50 women who show up for these workshops, and it's really word of mouth. So someone has success with it, so they go and talk to someone that they know, and they show up next time. So we teach them. Right now we're teaching them how to stitch, and then initially gift will buy those products from these
mm-hmm,
workshops, so we buy it from them, and the money goes back to these families so they can provide for their kids. But the ultimate goal is to buy the product and sell it in larger stores.
mm-hmm,
So we reached out to multiple retail stores in the United States, in South Africa, to see if they would keep these products and test it out and see what kind of demand they're getting. So simple things like face masks, winter jackets, anything that the women can stitch and make some money. We teach them that. In Mexico, we are teaching them how to grow food, so fruits and vegetables, because every family has a small piece of land, and they can use that to grow fruits and vegetables, which they can sell, also provide for their own kids, and don't have to rely on anyone else providing them with food.
mm-hmm.
And the food can be sold in the local farmers market, and that's where they make, few dollars a week to bring back home, and the kids don't go hungry.
Okay, so yeah, so that's and I like the idea of really looking at it from a sustainable and long term, looking at the long term more than the short term, because I mean we've had, I mean I'm talking more about Africa, because that's what I know. I mean, we had aid donation and things from all over the world, but things are still the
Yeah,
same. You still,
yeah,
it looks like it's even getting worse. And so you don't really solve the problem. You actually creating another problem, and at the end, those communities, they don't actually get out of the poverty and the scarcity that they're living in. And I really like your approach to really say, okay, we need to teach them something so they can take care of themselves instead of
Yeah.
just waiting, being very passive and waiting for things to come to them. So
Yeah, and which is why I always like to stress with even people who are donating, it all starts with you. It all
mhm,
starts with the people who donate. I always suggest that don't donate just because you saw a picture of a child who is starving. That's
mhm,
reacting to something. Invest in organizations who have their entire might behind prevention. You want to
mhm,
see a child going to school. That's who you want to
mhm,
support so that the
mhm,
child doesn't end up hungry or exploited.
mhm,
There are
mhm,
more
mhm.
kids like that. There are more kids who are not being exploited. They're just in the wrong place, wrong time, wrong situation, and you have to find those kids and provide them with the opportunity to do better.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. And so I hope, I mean, everybody is, and I see, because the show is also, in Africa, in a lot of area where, we need this information, and we really need to understand that, donations, they are fine, but, in the long run, we need to learn how to take care of ourselves. And that's the most important thing. And one of the one unfortunately there's no name. We need to teach people how to fish, instead of waiting for the fish to come to them. And that's a great approach. Thank you for your insight. So we're going to take a break, and we will come back and talk about the other big project that you have, which is sport, solar for sport. And we'll come back and continue this amazing conversation. So we are back. We are back with Manna. So we are with her. She's doing some amazing with her organization and her team, some amazing humanitarian work. And we're really happy to have her today. So Manna, you have this project, the Sport for Solar. So what is this? What is this project? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes. So sports for solar
Mm-hmm,
is it's a combination of sports where
mm-hmm,
you create role models for the kids who don't have role models. So sports is
mm-hmm,
a great way of doing that.
mm-hmm,
Teamwork,
mm-hmm,
But it started with the vision of providing 50,000 households with portable solar lights
mm-hmm.
in Africa, Mexico, United States, and Asia.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
in the next few years, we want to make sure that 50,000 households have light and they are not living in dark. A
mhm,
lot of these communities that we work with do not have solar light. They don't have light. So
mhm.
some of them steal electricity. You will see all
I
these
can
live
imagine.
wires,
Mhm,
which is also not safe. Or they use candles or other sources of energy, which kind of it's dangerous. You see
mhm,
these fire accidents, and kids are always at the receiving end of it. There's so many kids with this fire burn marks because there was a candle that set the entire shack on fire. So we want to change that. It's also solar light is clean energy. But sometimes you see that local governments will get hung up in approving things. So getting solar panels, that's a large investment. That's also takes longer time. So we figured that the way around that would be to bring smaller solar tops, which have, I think, 2 or 3 years of life. They are charged by the sun. So Africa has no shortage of sun. Mexico has no shortage of sun. So all you have to do is put the solar top, outside. It charges and it will provide light for the entire household. Again, going back to the basic philosophy of not giving it for free. So we wanted to make it seem like the kids are actually earning it for their family. So they feel proud of bringing back light for the household. So we do these annual events. In Africa, we do soccer. So the kids take part in a all-day soccer tournament, and they're trained for this. Some of the kids coach throughout the year, and they play soccer. And everyone goes home with solar light. The winners will go home with solar jars, which are bigger like trophies. And everyone who took part in the tournament goes home with a solar top. So we're doing that we just did one in South Africa in February before COVID, and we'll do another one in November. The settlement that we work with has 4,000 homes. None of the houses have light. So my goal is to bring solar light to these 4,000 households by the end of this year.
So that's impressive, isn't it? And to know how actually successful are you with all of this? Because that's very ambitious, isn't it? Do you have people participating, sponsor locally?
Yeah.
How do you structure all of this?
It's done by the local volunteers.
Okay.
And people ask me how we do this, even with COVID. How are we traveling? What's going on? Because we still have workshops going on every week. I think the secret behind that is to have your local volunteers who live in that settlement, and they're invested in the progress of that community. So in South Africa, we have a bunch of volunteers who live in the settlement, and they run the workshops. We are always going back and forth on FaceTime and WhatsApp. They keep me updated, send me videos and pictures. I call in sometimes on the workshop so I can speak with the women. But that's how you do it. Instead of flying people in from United States, we cultivate local relationships with businesses, embassies, and then we have local volunteers who put all their time into this.
And I think that's probably the way to go, because like I said, the cultural aspect of it is very important, because if you want to communicate with the communities, you have to understand how they live and what's important to them. So you can't just come from anywhere and start
you need someone to speak the local language. So we have volunteers in every community that we work with, and they live there. They were born and raised in that community.
That's important. So I just wanted to ask you, because you obviously so much when you go underground, what do you think have been the most difficult for you since you started this work? Because it can be challenging, isn't it?
It has its ups and downs. I can tell you that there are days when you feel completely hopeless. You feel, oh my God, how will I arrange for those sponsorships in 24 hours? But the satisfaction that you get from seeing a child succeed I don't think there's any other job I want to do. This is the best kind of work you can do in your life. But the biggest challenge is, I think it's educating people about how to donate. I feel like people like to associate themselves with large brands, large companies. So when something happens, they'll donate without thinking.
Mhm.
I want people to think and donate. I want them to understand that it's really important to put money in prevention. It's so
Mhm.
important to do that. There's so many more kids who need it. So many more kids who will be exploited, or who will be in a situation, in a bad situation, if we don't help them now, today. you know so that has been the biggest challenge, because there's so many wonderful organizations doing amazing, incredible work with victims of
Mhm.
everything, but there are very few who do proactive work, and it's very
Mhm.
difficult to raise money for something that is not sensational. you know um,
Exactly.
if there's I mean, what do I show you? All I have to show you is kids succeeding and going to school and having food, and that's not sensational enough to raise money. So
Mhm.
that's been the biggest challenge for us. Yeah.
Mhm. And I hear you, because especially now we like sensational thing. Maybe there's I mean, earthquake somewhere, and all the organization are going there, or I don't know, something is happening in the community. There've been a shooting or something or whatever. Everybody is there, but then in between there's nothing done. So
Yeah.
and yet you have, like you said, to do the work, the prevention, and sustain it, because it's not
Yeah.
just one time. And that's really
Donation,
hard. Yeah.
I used to work with American Red Cross many years ago before GIFT. I was the chief of operations for Southern California. And I mean, Red Cross does incredible work in the
Mhm.
community. There's no question about that. But I also know from my experience that the donation cycle sometimes is like the news cycle, 24
Mhm.
hours. Yeah. So something happens and people feel the pain and they donate, donate, donate,
Mhm.
and then it dies down. There's no questions asked. It's just
Mhm.
like the explosion that happened in Beirut.
Mhm.
I don't see that anymore on TV. It's
Exactly.
gone. And the families are still suffering. The kids are still suffering. But you don't see that anymore in the news because it has a life of about 24 hours.
Mhm. 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 So and I think, how do you manage that? Because that's the thing, because you still have, as an humanitarian, to go and do something. So how do you manage that? Is there, because there's also the emotional part, you have to manage yourself as well, because like everybody, when you see, somebody really suffering, the first thing is to help directly, and after a while you just make sure you're not that involved anymore. So how do you sustain yourself? What are the things? Do you have a particular process to really stay focused on the issue, and really focus just on continue to focus on the prevention?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say that you require a lot of persistence.
Mhm.
So even though it's no longer in the news, does not mean it does not exist. So for someone like me or an organization that does the work that we do, we have to make sure that you know whoever we are working with, it goes through the entire process until they can provide for themselves. So you
Mhm.
don't just drop people because it's no longer in the news and you cannot raise money for that. So one of the things you can do for that is anyone who's running a nonprofit, I would say that you need to understand that you cannot help everyone. You have to pick and choose. It's just not possible to. It's not sustainable either. So especially with preventive work. Reactive work is much easier because you can be there when something happens and you can leave. Preventive work, you have to see through the whole process of the child going to school every year until
Mhm.
they can pay for their own school and their
Mhm.
own food and their what I mean. So it's really focusing on in Mexico, we have 1,000 families. I cannot possibly work with. I would love to, but I
Mhm.
can't because not
Mhm.
everyone is ready to receive your help. So you work with the people who want to receive your help. You focus
Yes.
on the families, the kids who are in a position to receive from you.
And that makes difficult the selection process, because I mean there's so much going on. So what are the criteria that you really look at, when you say, okay, like you said, you can't help everybody, but how do you choose? Because that's the thing. How do you choose? And
It's very interesting. You really don't
mhm,
choose yourself. The
mhm,
families choose. So you see that if you start off with 100 families, many of those families will drop off
mhm,
because they don't want to continue receiving what you're doing. So we
mhm,
have 4,000 families in that settlement in South Africa. Not every family shows up for the empowerment workshops. It's right there. They can walk to it, but they don't want to do it. They rather
mhm,
receive donations. So you have to allow the family to choose
mhm,
if they want to receive from you or something else. If they're ready
mhm.
for transitional aid, they should get transitional aid and they should work with some other organization, not yours.
Okay, all right. So let's have a break and see, the different comment we have. We have Eva. She's in South Africa, in Pretoria. So she agrees. It is important to put the money in prevention. She herself works with young mothers. So she's been doing a lot of work with the young mothers. So she understands that as well. And she's also, she agrees that, you cannot help everyone, and I mean, you have limited, power and you have to basically, understand that. And that's why that belief, that's changing the life of one person counts. You
Yeah.
can do that much one at a time. And that's
And
very important
to
to
add to
understand.
that, Eva, you're as a nonprofit and as a person doing this work, your
Mhm,
job is to make things available for these families.
mhm,
It's not your job to force them to accept it. It's
mhm,
their job to decide if they want to accept what you're providing.
mhm.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's have another break, and then we come back and finish the show. Like I said at the beginning, it's Global Humanitarian Day, so we really acknowledge the work that people like Manna and other people are doing around the world, because it's tremendous. I mean, we really need to pay them a special tribute, because they are real life heroes, and they're really committing their life to helping others in sometimes the most extreme circumstances. And it's important to acknowledge that, and important to understand, because their work is not always visible. Like you said, it can be once in a while on TV when things happen and it's spectacular, but then after that people forget about them. So it's important to bring back, the light on them, because they're doing some amazing work. So we are back today. My guest is Manna. Manna is a humanitarian. She's also a global, ambassador as well. And I just wanted to ask you: have you been in a position, where you just feel like so powerless? and you know that you want to help, but you can't. So what, how do you feel when it's like that? I don't know how do you respond, because it can be hard. Like you said, you can't help everybody, and especially when you go in area where there's been war or things like that, you probably have to leave people behind. So how do you feel? I mean, just want to know.
It's, I don't think I can put that in words, but especially if it has to do with children, it's difficult. It's really difficult, especially a child. We have a family in Mexico. Um, the progress has been great with them, but it's very slow. And I feel personally invested in those kids. Their brother and sister, and uh, I met the little boy when he was 9, and the mother. Both the kids are a product of rape. The mom was raped multiple times. She used to deal in drugs. It's been 5 years we working with the family. She's clean now and she has a job. But it took a lot to get the kids to school because she was not in a position to understand what we were doing. I mean, the first time I met her, I felt like she was going to punch me in the face. She could not say, she could not speak. You feel for those kids because you know that you're going to leave and they'll have to live with the mom, who's not anyway a caregiver at this point. The kids are providing for her. So you always come across situations where it's just tough. It's really tough, but you have to keep moving forward. You have to have the goal is to get those kids out of that situation, so you can get carried away with your own emotions. Also, the more you do this work, the more you build your muscle for things. Sometimes we'll have new volunteers come in and volunteer and they'll cry. And I feel like, oh, I don't cry anymore.
I'm so used to it now.
Yeah, but it's a good thing because you can't let your emotions get, come in the way of acting. You have to have a clear head to think. And I think I've reached a point in 15 years I've seen everything. So I don't think anything surprises me anymore. I'm always, I'm always looking at the larger picture, which is to get the kids out of that situation.
And that's and you get to this point with experience, isn't it? Because it must have been very difficult at the beginning, especially see people dying or seeing young children who want to eat, they haven't eaten for I don't know how many days, and you're just sitting there, you don't really know what to do, which leads to my next question, is what makes, what are the key characteristics of a good humanitarian or a good, philanthropist? If you can, for you, obviously, based on the experience that you have, and what are the key things that, as a humanitarian, as a, philanthropist, you feel like you need to have to really do a good work?
You have to be crazy.
That was not what I was expecting.
But that's true. If you ask the people who know me, they always say that, oh, you're always running towards disasters. You're always running to when something happens, when there's an explosion in Beirut. No one wants to go to Beirut, but you're running to Beirut. I think, it comes naturally to you. And with every profession, every career choice that you make in your life, if it comes naturally to you, that's your calling. That's what you're here for. And I think one of the things that I respect about other people doing this work is the persistence. They're so consistent with this. It's not a day job. It's not a day job. It's a 24-hour work that you need to put in year after year, month after month, week after week. You cannot give up.
Mhm.
So if you are someone who gives up easily, this is not for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
I would say consistency is what I respect in people who are doing this work. You have
Mhm.
to be consistent, you have to be persistent. Um, you just cannot give up on people, you cannot give up on things. You have to keep trying.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's the key, and it's like in everything in life, isn't it? Is that, if you really want to get to somewhere, you
Yeah,
have to keep trying, whatever happened, whatever obstacle you have, and whatever state you are in, you just have to go and continue, keep going, even if, sometimes you feel completely powerless, like, all the situation that you've just, mentioned to us. So, I
yeah,
mean, getting to the end of it's already 1 hour. I can't even believe it.
I know.
We're getting to the end of the show right now.
I
And
know.
one thing that I want to ask you, you doing all of this, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic work. But what's next? I mean, what is the purpose for you? What is the legacy that you're really working on? And with all this work, because at some point you can do so much, but what is, for you, the future? What's next?
What's next? I just, I always want to see a planet that is safe for the
Mhm.
kids. Um, it's really how we raise our kids today defines, how they turn up to be as grown-ups and what they do with this planet, right?
Mhm.
Um, I know a lot of organizations are doing good job with the animal rescue work,
Mhm.
but you have to understand, if you don't teach your kids to be gentle and nice to animals, you always have people who will torture animals. So it's really investing in our children to make sure that they grow up as responsible grown-ups
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
keep giving back. So I I think I'm the last person on this planet to think about future. I just don't think about future at all. I think about now.
Mhm.
I really do. And if people ask me this question, what are you like? Where do you think you are in 5 years? And I'm like, what? I know where I'm in 5 minutes, but I see my life just being this,
Mhm. Mhm.
working for children and women, because those are the two most vulnerable groups
Mhm.
out
Mhm.
there.
Mhm. And I like your answer where you say, okay, me, I just think about, the next 5 minutes, because,
Yeah,
and sometimes you just have to do that to be able to stretch yourself, because when you think too far, you might actually get scared, in a
yeah.
way. So,
And there's
especially
a
with the
vision
work
to
that
this.
you're doing.
There
Yeah.
there's always that dream, and that has not changed. I can tell
Mhm.
you, in 15 years, the dream that was to make this planet safe and secure for our kids. It's
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
simple. It
Mhm.
hasn't changed. There are different ways of going about it, and you develop those ways and you execute some of it. You leave behind some of it, but the ultimate goal is to make as many kids um, feel safe and secure in their family as
Mhm.
possible.
And that's a challenge, because we hear a lot of, very traumatic stories, and especially with the pandemic, I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
domestic violence and rape and
Yep.
all kind of things. And there's still a lot of work to do, and that's why, it's really good that people like you come in and then come, talk about it, talk about all the challenges, and also about, show that it's possible to do it, so that anybody, wherever we are, we can actually start, to do something and have an impact. And when everything comes together, we can actually make this world safe, like you said, for the kids, and for women in general. So that's really good. So, I mean, for those who really want to continue the conversation, or even help, because we've seen, Rosalind is really keen to volunteer. Any particular message or any particular thing that you want to highlight, any other projects coming in, and any things that you need as well, that the audience needs to know.
Yeah, so anyone who, we love volunteers. We are a volunteer organization, so everyone who does gift work is a volunteer, including me. So this organization will not exist without people. So I suggest that you submit a volunteer application because we have multiple things going on, workshops and initiatives in different countries. The volunteer application helps us understand your location, where you are. Now we have something coming up in South Africa in November. We obviously do the weekly workshops, but I am going to be in South Africa in November with the women. We'll continue with the solar initiative. It took some time because of COVID. No one could travel, but we will be there in November. So if anyone is in South Africa, wants to come volunteer, would be lovely. November would be a great time for you to come out, volunteer. Mexico, same thing. If you're in the United States or in Mexico, we will, we go there every 2 weeks because it's so much closer. The border has been closed for some time because of COVID, but I'm sure it will open up maybe next month. But again, the workshops are going on. So if you are in that location and you want to go join the workshops, just submit your volunteer application and we'll get in touch with you.
Okay, that's fantastic. So I hope you all got the information. So Eva, it sounds great. I'm in South Africa, so she might just you might just go on the website and then
Yeah.
submit your volunteer application, and start helping the community, and making an impact, and really contributing to making this world a better place, because that's really what we really want to see. And this show is about making sure people become the best that they can be, and engineer greatness wherever they are. And it means making all the effort, and putting all doing everything that you can to really go the extra mile to help yourself, but also to help people, because that's the most important thing. We are all in this world. We have to work for humanity, so that everybody can find a place and be happy. So thank you so much, Manna, for spending this hour with us. It's been really amazing, and I can't even start to congratulate you for everything that you've been doing for now more than a decade, and you still have this really energy that you started with, so which is amazing to see. And like you said, it comes from your heart, and it's your passion. You're clear about your purpose, and that's amazing. That's amazing for the world, because they have somebody who really committed to make it a better place, and for humanity as well. So any last message that you want to leave the audience with before we leave the platform?
Yes, I just wanted to let people know that our team is traveling to Beirut this week. There was an explosion that happened over there. I don't know if people know about it, but 2 weeks ago, I think a week ago maybe, there was a huge explosion, and there are thousands of families who are displaced right now. So it has died. The news has died down in the news channels. On the news channels, you don't see it anymore. I would like people to keep talking about it, because that's how we can get the work done. There were 160 people dead, 300,000 displaced. So we will be in Beirut working with those families directly. If anyone wants to help out, please go on the website. The information's there. Reach out to us and let us know how you can help. But this is a great time to help Beirut come back to life.
And they've already had so many challenges there. So on top, this explosion is really making things very difficult. So if you have the possibility to help, just give a hand and help, people from Beirut, like, Manna was saying. So that's the end for us today. Again, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience, Manna. And I wish you good luck for everything that you do, and really, make sure that you get some more volunteers after this show. And I think it's gonna happen. So that's really fantastic. So for everybody who've been here and participating or even just listening, thank you for being here with us. It has been a great conversation, and I really enjoyed it. And really, like I said, always admirative of what Manna is doing. And it's been also a special day because she came as well, and I hosted her on Global Humanitarian Day. So thank you so much, and I'll be back on Friday with another guest. So thank you very much to everybody, and thank you, Manna, for
Thank
being
you.
with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed this hour. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.